So this series is based for international students or students that are studying abroad, but this video in particular can be applied to domestic students, people from the UK that are planning on studying in the UK, so don't let that deter you from this video. My name's Daisy if you're new here, and this is the second video in my study abroad series. So the last video, which was the first video, was all about like kind of general study abroad, how to pick your program, how to pick your location. So if you're starting from scratch here about study abroad, I would start with that video and then come back to this one. But today I'm going to be talking all about accommodation. And obviously this is an extremely important topic because this is literally where you're going to be living. So before we get into today's video, I just want to take a minute and thank the sponsor, which is Accommodation for Students. As an international student, not gonna lie, finding accommodation was really tough for me. When I first applied for my study abroad program, I really only thought that the only option for me was student halls. Accommodation for Students is the UK's leading accommodation website service, and they kind of compile all of the different options for you. But through the service, you can see that there are houses, halls, and flats available for people. We as international students already have a lot on our plate to think about as we try to pack our entire life into 1 or 2 suitcases. So searching for accommodation should be easy, and with this service, it is literally the click of a button. January is the perfect time to be looking for accommodation because a lot of these options fill up super fast, and so now is the perfect time to start your search if you're going to be studying in the UK for September 2020. So this service is 100% free to use. All you have to do is go to their website, accommodationforstudents.com. You select your city and then type in your school name, and it will show a bunch of different options for you, whether you want to stay in halls, a student flat, a house. So I'll insert a little screenshot of all of the cities that they cater to. So they actually cater to over 100 cities in the UK. So no matter where you're going in the UK, they will probably have an option for you. So I would definitely check them out as your first point of research when it comes to accommodation. And within those cities, obviously there are multiple schools in the city. So when I went to look for London accommodation and I started typing in Kingston University, which is where I studied abroad, so many more universities showed up. They have definitely got you covered. And if you're having trouble or you're first starting out and you don't really know how to start, they have a whole dedicated team of people to help you get started, find the best options for you, and it's a live chat box on their website, so you can live chat with them while searching for accommodation. And so they will help you get started, explore your options, and help you find the best fit for you. So if you're planning on studying at university in the UK in 2020 or beyond, I would definitely recommend checking out their service, and thank you so much again to Accommodation for Students for sponsoring this video. So we have a lot of information to cover in this video, so we're gonna jump right into it. So in this video, I'm going to cover all of the options you have for accommodation and kind of the pros and cons of each one, so you can kind of weed out which ones are for you and which ones aren't for you. So I asked you guys on Instagram if you had any questions about accommodation or living with other people, and you sent in a lot of questions, so thank you so much. Shameless plug to my Instagram. I always put those little stickers on my story right before I film a video, so I can make sure that it's the most relevant information that I'm giving you. So I took all the questions you asked me and I kind of matched them all together for the information I'm going to talk about in this video. So the first option I'm going to talk about is private halls. And these halls are kind of like dorms. So these halls are not owned by the university, they're owned by another company, but it's all students that live in these flats. So it's mostly people that go to your school or any schools around you. These halls are the most common in bigger cities. Like I went to school in London, so there were a lot of them all around the city and they cater to a bunch of different schools. These are more expensive than other options, but they also are inclusive with the bills, and it's probably the easiest way to find a private studio flat. But the options within these halls can range from like an 8-person flat to a completely private studio apartment. I would say this is the cheapest way you can live alone because studio flats in cities, especially in London, are ridiculously expensive, but the student houses are more affordable because they're for students. But the cheaper rooms definitely fill up fast, so if you're looking to that as a last resort, you're probably going to end up having to pay more. So my friend Sierra actually stayed in one of these buildings. She stayed in IQ in Kingston, and I reached out to her and asked her for some pros and cons just so I could share them with you guys. Thank you so much to Sierra for contributing to this video. She actually has a lot of blog posts about living abroad and traveling around Europe. If you want to check out her blog, I'll leave it linked down below. So she told me the pros of this accommodation is a separation of university and home life. You don't have to have any flatmates. You can be closer to or in the city center. You get a chance to mingle with other students from different universities. It's usually quieter than other student accommodation, and there's less strict rules and no curfews. Her cons were they're more isolating because you aren't surrounded by people from your university. You have to commute to school, and there's a less community school involvement because it is with a private company. So now we're gonna move on to student halls, which is what I lived in when I studied abroad at Kingston University last year. So student halls are part of your university, so you're going to be living with people that go to your university as well. These halls are arranged into flats, or at least at my school they were. And so for me, it was 8 people to one flat with a shared kitchen. And that was really great because you had your own private room, but it was also not very great because the kitchen was always disgusting. If you want to stay in a university hall, you have to apply early for these. I literally applied to live in my flat the day that the hall selections opened, and I actually got the last room available on my campus, and I only selected my flat like 6 hours or something after the portal opened. So if you want one of these, definitely do it early. If you do end up staying in your uni halls, it's all inclusive, so you don't have to worry about paying bills every month. Also with these and with the other accommodation I just mentioned, both of those are usually fully furnished, and so all you have to do is bring your own bedding and room decor, which is really great for international students because we don't want to be lugging our entire bedroom across the world. So these are definitely the best 2 options for international students, especially if you're in your first year. And I would definitely recommend being in a uni hall for your first year, especially if you don't know anyone going into your university experience, because this is the easiest way to make friends, is to being in a shared flat. Like my first 2 weeks of university were not stressful at all because I got on with my flatmates really well, and we went out to Freshers Week together, and it really made us bond, and we had a little group message. This is also the easiest because you usually don't have to commute to your campus. My hall was literally like a 5-minute walk to my classes. So just to recap, my pros of living in a student hall are that everyone's in the same boat, so not everyone really knows each other. All bills are included, and maintenance is easy to get a hold of. And then the cons are you can't decide who lives in your flat, so it will be completely random, so you're not guaranteed to get along with the people that you live with. Some people are very loud above, below, or your flatmates might be really loud if they throw a party or if they come home from a night out. So that's really annoying. Trust me, I have a lot of experience with that. And your kitchen is shared, so you will have to deal with that. It's also hard if you don't have a communal space. Like my flat was just our bedrooms and then our kitchen, so it's hard to have people over to hang out. You'll probably have to go to like a more communal space if you want to hang out with your friends. Now we're gonna move on to a shared house or shared flat, which is really popular in your 2nd or 3rd year at university. If you want to live in a shared house or flat, you need to be applying for these really early. I think January is actually the perfect time to be applying for these. I've already had a couple months to like solidify friendships and like make friend groups. This would be the time that you start asking people if they have housing lined up for next year and if they want to live with you. So when you go through an agency and not through a university or a private accommodation service, you always want to make sure that you have up-to-date photos, videos, or you go and visit it in person just to make sure you're not being like catfished by a house, because I've definitely heard some horror stories about that. And if you're going to put a deposit on something, you need to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. So even if you don't live near where you're trying to live, having a friend maybe go and take this tour for you would be a great idea. So my friend Neve, who I met at uni last year, she actually lives in a house this year, so she sent me some pros and cons. Shout out Neve. So some pros of living in a house are you live in your own space, so it makes you have that independence that you might not have in halls. You actually are living with your friends, you're not living with random people. So most of the pros for this is that you have more time and space to socialize because you're A, living with people that you actually like, and B, you have more space to socialize or like throw a party or whatever. So some cons are that the bills are not included in this and you have a landlord. You also have to organize all of your bills yourself and make sure they're paid on time and everything, so that's an added responsibility. And also if you throw a party or something, you have to be mindful of the people that live around you because they're more than likely to be like actual families or working professionals and not just all students, unless you live like on a street that's all student houses, which I know is common in a lot of places. I know that there are a lot of student houses next to people that like actually live there full time. So you just have to be more aware of your neighbors. So the last type of accommodation I'm going to be talking about today is if you live in private accommodation or with a host family. This would be probably the best option for people that are only studying abroad for a semester, because a lot of the other accommodation options I just talked about are more for people that are staying for a year, and it definitely is a lot easier to find accommodation if you're staying for the year because of the way that the leases work. But I know that there are options, like if someone moves out of a flat, halfway through the year, that space will obviously become available, but it's not guaranteed that there will be space there, if you know what I'm saying. So a host family is definitely a good option if you're only there for a semester. And that is what my friend Julia did. So thank you so much to Julia for contributing to this video. So she told me she lived with an old lady and her cat, and every month she paid her for the rent, and she lived in her own private room. She also said that she had a flatmate who goes to the same home university as her, so they both are American and they go to the same university back in the States. So the pros she gave me were that they were cheaper than the dorms, obviously because you're only staying there for a semester and you don't have to sign a lease. It's nice to have someone from the area that you have a connection with so you can get recommendations for local spots. You have more privacy and you learn how to use the public transportation system, because that leads into one of the cons. You have to commute to get to school. Other cons she told me is that it's more isolated than the dorms. You have to use the public transportation a lot, and there might be some more rules depending on your host family. This is probably one of the cheapest options because you don't have to sign a lease and everything's inclusive. But once again, this is more common for people that go there only for a semester versus a year. And I would only really recommend that to people that are going for a semester, because if you're going for a year, I'd say living with other students would be the best for gaining a student experience, I guess. So that's all of the accommodation types I'm going to talk about today. So we've reached the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for all your positive feedback on my first video. I worked really hard on it and I really like how it came out. So if you haven't seen that already, be sure to watch that one. While you're here, make sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more study abroad content coming your way. I actually still have a bunch of vlogs from abroad that I haven't finished, so I'm kind of the queen of uploading things late and out of order, so you'll still see some fresh study abroad content from when I was abroad. Be sure to follow me on Instagram because that is where I get the inspiration for most of my videos, and I ask you guys directly for questions and topics I should cover. And thank you so much again to Accommodation for Students for sponsoring this video, so definitely check them out. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!